Hello, I'm in a really bad mood. If you watch this, you're just going to have to put up with it. Yeah, I'm on a downer. I'm really pissed off. Bloody records and CDs. Fucking bullshit. Of course, it's all snobbery, The original. Look, back in the old days, only the richest of rich people could afford one of those old record players with a big speaker. Only the rich. And all you could get is, classical music was what it was aimed at, and in the old days of 78, can you imagine trying to, this 45, this new, this thing where they've been doing these 45 RPM cuts and where you got to turn over Led Zeppelin 2 after every two tracks and then put the next. That's going back to the bad old days, mate, to get marginal sound improvement. Back in the 1920s, to listen to, the Eroica or something by Beethoven, you'd have to play a 20 box 78 set just to hear that piece of music. Like, I don't know how you might get 3 minutes out of a 78. So you're just getting into the bit where the cavalry charges over the hill and the cannons are blasting, and you got to wind up the damn thing, turn it over, and then must have been, man, those people must have been really mentally disturbed to go put themselves through that shit. And I can proudly say I've never even been to a classical concert. I was supposed to go to a free one, and at the Opera House. I don't know, I can't remember, back in the 80s. I was a full-blown alco in those days, and I decided to go on a pub crawl around the rocks instead. So I missed something, possibly. And then we move on to the 1940s. Once again, LPs were created exclusively for rich, really filthy rich people with really, for the time, best sounding systems. And same thing, it was just so they could actually put almost all an Eroica or whatever the fuck that thing's called in its fullness. This time you only had to turn it over once at 30. You got 33 RPM instead of 78. You only had to turn it over once, but you still had to turn the fucking thing over, which drove these, disturbed, sociopathic, rich record collectors insane, mad, really angry. So they, in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, same thing again. To satiate these neurotic nutbags that just can't, get through life without listening to any bloody music like I can, weren't happy. So they invented the CD so you could fit the whole fucking Eroica thing with 50,000 outtakes of the Eroica, all on one little shiny disc that looked so unappealing in its little plastic jewel case. The only good thing about the early CDs, I wish I'd kept the first one I ever bought. I actually bought two or three CDs about 3 or 4 years before I even bought a CD player. I bought Highway 61 and Cheap Thrills, and they were bloody expensive at the time. Like, man, they were like 3 times more expensive than an album. And but they came with this wonderful, useless, huge cardboard box. And here's the CDs there, and they got this massive. It looked really impressive, but it was just bullshit. It's anyway. So yeah, CDs, and So it was all, if it wasn't for a handful of filthy rich bastards with a sound fetish, none of us would have to listen to all that terrible music we've had to listen to in our lives. And let's face it, no pop group should ever be allowed to have put out an LP. I mean, it's it's going to be one or two great songs if you're lucky, and the rest of it's just padding. Absolutely, always. Even the greats, the so-called greats, the bloody Beatles and the bloody Stones. If you really go through those albums without the teenage brain and the excitement and all that, with an old brain that's just can't get excited about anything really, you just go, holy shit. I mean, I even knew some of those tracks on that first Stones album was shit. And I was only 13. And I thought, fuck, how can someone write a piece of garbage like Honest I Do? Honest I Do. Oh, come on. We'll see, Come On, the first Stones single, is pretty good, but it's but it even it's pretty good, but it was lucky it even was given a measly 7 inch to reside upon, But I don't know. I'm just in a rotten mood today. Oh, that's right. Lee Perry's died, I think. I'll have to look it up on the news. He is as crazy as batshit, that dickhead. Fair dinkum. A real nutbag, Lee Perry. But I've got quite a lot of his dub stuff here. So I was really, really into dub and Lee Perry and some of his associated um, creators at the time back in the 70s. Really into it, and then suddenly something in my brain just lost interest. I don't know. It's just, I guess all these things are just meant to happen at certain periods in your life for whatever reason, and then why be? I'm not a completist at all. I can't understand why people got to own everything ever put out by their favourite artist, even if it's garbage. They got to have it. They got to keep getting it again and again and again and again, from 78 to 33 to stereo to CD to streaming, whatever the hell that is. I think streaming's just like what used to be called radio. And the best sound I've ever heard, in honest, was the good old receivers back in the 60s and the 70s, listening to classical music coming over on a receiver. Beautiful, beautiful, warm sound. I used to sit there thinking, how can those notes be floating through the air, and then there's some sort of antenna, and these notes go in there, and then they go down to this thing sitting in my lounge room or bedroom or whatever, and then come out sounding so good. How can that be? People don't stop to think about this. It's easy to know how a damn record can sound. It's got, you can see a needle, and you can see the grooves. So you think, oh, okay, vibrations, electricity, yeah. It's all a bit of a con, and your brain just makes it sound better in your head or something. But the true magic is that how can radio, I mean, and even CDs are sort of more magical than records, because you can't even see. It looks like a little record, but it's stuck inside a machine, and you can't even see it turning around. So you don't really know what's going on in there. When you look at an album, you just go, oh, yeah, it's just that silly old album. The needle will jump in a couple of seconds. Boing, yep. You can see it. It's tactile. It's simplistic. It's the monkey brain appreciates vinyl. You know, as we go forward through evolution, the CD. Oh, look at the time. The CD and all those things. Yes, they're improvements, but I'm sick of this. See you later.